Hello everyone, my name is Chinwe Oyilidike Nwafor, the storyteller, and today I will be reading a story from my book, Karma. Yeah, this time I'll be reading a story. I usually tell the story, but I'll be reading direct from the book. I hope you enjoy it. And the title of the story is The Past Does Not Forget. Mr. Aremu, the divisional police officer of Area 3 police station in Sulere, stood staring into space at the tears rolled down his cheeks as he stared at the freshly covered grave of his own son David. His heart was bursting within him, and his mind went to the past. He kept repeating this thing called karma. Everyone around him observing him would think that the man was in great pain. After all, his only son had died. His late son, Dr. Benga, had just returned from the UK after studying medicine. Benga had graduated with flying colors, and his father had been very proud of him until his demise. Everybody around Mr. Aremu shook their heads sadly. They couldn't imagine what great pain he was going through. What they didn't know was that his pain was much deeper than they could imagine. Mr. Aremu was weighed down by the guilt of the past. The past had caught up with him in a very terrible way. As he stood at the cemetery staring at nothing, his mind went back to the 6th of November, 1999. The day had started like any other day. DPO Aremu was then just an inspector, had resumed work that day, and the day was going well until around 2 p.m. in the afternoon, when a woman ran into the station crying. Her clothes were stained with blood, and she was rolling on the floor and wailing. She kept screaming, "He has killed my only son. He has killed my only son." The police officers at the station tried to calm her down to hear what she was saying. When they had finally calmed her a little, Inspector Aremu had asked her what happened, and she had explained that her son was trying to cross the road in front of her shop when a vehicle that was running on the wrong lane of the traffic knocked him down and killed him on the spot. Onlookers and Okada riders pursued the vehicle and apprehended the man because he was running on the wrong side of the traffic. They were dragging him down to the police station. They had already set his car, which was a jeep, on fire. When the mob arrived with the man, the police officers calmed down the mob and took the man into their custody. Soon, the woman's husband arrived at the station after depositing the body of their dead son at the morgue. When he arrived, he was asked to make a statement. The offender had already written his statement. The grieving father demanded that the case be taken to court, since the offender was guilty of disobeying traffic laws by driving on the wrong side of the traffic. The grieving father claimed that his son would have been alive if the man had not been careless and reckless. The police officers calmed him down and promised that his son will receive justice. Inspector Aremu asked the grieving father to go home and return the next day with the lawyer. They promised to keep the offender in their custody till the next day. In the evening of that day, the offender asked to make a call to his lawyer, which they agreed to. When the lawyer arrived, Inspector Aremu was shocked to see that he was a prominent lawyer in the country. In fact, he was his son, a senior advocate of Nigeria. The lawyer asked to speak privately with Inspector Aremu. When they were alone, he informed the inspector that his client was ready to squash the case and also pay compensation to the family of the dead man. Inspector Aremu informed him that the family of the dead man demanded justice instead. The lawyer asked him to call the family and their lawyer for settlement outside the court. He then greased the inspector's palm with a large sum of money and asked him to release his client to him. Inspector Aremu agreed. After all, he had been bought over. He then gave the lawyer time to return with his client the next day for settlement. The next day, when everyone had gathered, the lawyer started with the negotiation. He apologized on behalf of his client and told everyone that his client was ready to pay the sum of 1 million naira as compensation. This, however, did not sit well with the father of the deceased. He got up and angrily rejected the offer. Soon everywhere was heated up as the two sides began to exchange words. At the end of the day, the meeting was inconclusive as both parties stormed out angrily. The next day, Inspector Aremu tried again to reason with the family of the deceased, and they were adamant. All they wanted was justice. They argued that no amount of money could bring their son back and that they needed justice for him. That evening, the inspector was paid a visit by the offender and his client. He begged the inspector to help him squash the case so that it wouldn't damage his political career. He promised to give him 5 million naira as a reward. Inspector Aremu could not resist such an offer. After receiving the deposit of 3 million, he went to work. He wrote a new statement for the offender, exonerating him from any guilt. When the family of the deceased visited in the evening, they were shocked to see that the case had been turned. Their dead son was blamed for crossing the express instead of using the pedestrian bridge. When the father of the deceased tried to argue and register his anger, he was arrested and thrown behind counter. Soon the inspector and his men had trumped up enough charges to send him to jail for life. The man then began to plead for mercy. He realized that these people had been bribed. He pleaded for mercy and promised to go and bury his dead son and not pursue the case. After much pleading, he was released and warned not to pursue the case again. He was offered 1 million naira again, but he refused it sadly. He shed bitter tears as he walked away from the station. Days later, Inspector Remo got words that he had buried his son. As for the inspector, he got the balance of his payment and all his men were well settled. Years later, he became a devotional police officer through the connection of the offender who had helped to squash the case. He went on to do well in his career and he was able to send his son, Gbenga, and his daughter, Kemi, abroad to study. Gbenga had graduated as a medical doctor, while Kemi was a barrister. Inspector Remo had totally forgotten about the case until the fateful day when his son, Dr. Gbenga, had driven out to get some drinks and had gotten killed. Gbenga had gotten to the particular shop, but the sales girl had told him that they didn't have the brand of drink he was looking for. She told him that their neighbor across the road had a brand of drink. He then decided to dash across the road to get it instead of driving around his car to the other corner. Just as he entered the road, he was knocked down by a hit-and-run driver. The people around were not able to get the offender because he zoomed away in his car. When the DPO arrived at the spot where his son had been killed, his memory gave him a jolt. It was that very spot where that young man had been killed years ago. The young man he had squashed his case and refused to get justice for after collecting a huge bribe. He immediately fainted on the spot when he saw his son's lifeless body. He was rushed to the hospital and was in admission for 2 days before he regained his strength. After he was discharged, DPO Aremu became a shadow of himself. He moved around in a daze all through the preparation of his son's burial. Of course, everyone understood the man was really devastated at the loss of his only son. But what they did not know was that the DPO suffered a far greater pain within him as he stood there that day staring at Gbenga's grave. All he kept muttering and repeating to himself was this thing called karma. I hope you enjoyed the story and I hope you learned the lesson from the story. Once more, this is Oyilidike Chinwe, the storyteller. Thank you.